about the basic concept. So let's understand what is the market exactly. So the market, so there are the different kinds of the market, right? Where the major market is the financial market. So before we proceed, uh, so let's understand all these types of markets. So financial market include any place or a system that provides buyers and the sellers the means to trade financial instruments, including bonds, equities, various international currencies, derivatives, correct? However, the stock market is just a one type of financial market, and the financial market rely heavily on the information transparency to ensure that the market prices that the efficient and the appropriate. So first, let's go through the step by step of the markets. Right? Neither now financial market refer broadly to any marketplace where the trading or securities are occurs. Right? However, there are many kinds of financial markets, including forex, money, stock, bond, as I mentioned earlier. Correct. Now, the financial market categorized into the two types. That is, one is the money market, and second one is the capital market. However, we don't want to go into the money market. That is another subject of the discussion. However, let's focus on to the capital market. However, capital market is again subdivided into the two types. That is, one is the security market and other forms of the lending or the borrowing. Now let's focus on the securities since our discussion topic is the IPO. So basically the securities. So securities are the two types. Again, the securities market is the two types, primary market and the secondary market. So let me explain you the what is the primary market and what is the secondary market and in which market the IPO is going to be deal into it. So therefore, this basic concept need to have to clear before we proceed the entire IPO process or the discussion of the IPO process. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the basic difference between the primary market and the secondary market. So let me explain you this difference and the which market is the important. So the definition, if you go to the word market, can have many different meanings, right? As I earlier knew. But it is most often as a catch all term to deal with both the primary market and the secondary market. So it traces to the both market. In fact, primary market and secondary market are both are the distinct terms, and many times people are the mix up all these terms. However, the primary market refers to the market where securities are created, while the secondary market is one where in which they are traded along with investors, right? Uh, now the let's go by the difference, point wise difference. Then it will be the easy for you to understand the what is primary and what is secondary. So the definition itself is the securities issued first time to the public. So this is the market where we are going to launch our IPO. It's a primary market. And the secondary market where the already listed companies is going to trade it between the two markets, primary and secondary. Now, it is also called as new issue market for the primary and the post issue market. The name itself indicates that this is the post issue means the listed company can go into other field. Now let's come to the price determination. A issuer company in consultation with the merchant bankers, wherein when we are talking about the IPO in primary market, so the bankers or the means merchant bankers or the parties who are involved into all this IPO process, they are going to determine the price. However, in secondary market, it's a purely demand and supply. If the company wants to go into for the additional funds or whatever, then that time they put the FPOs into the secondary market. Now the key intermediaries means the people who are playing the major role. In primary market, the merchant bankers, lead managers, like DRLM, we call it as a RTH. However, in secondary market, it's the stockbrokers and the DPs, basically. So now, what is the purpose in the primary market? To raise the capital like the IPO. Why we are going for an IPO? So next slide we will come to the that why we want to go into the IPO. Wherein I will explain that. and to seek the listing into the securities. However, in secondary market, trading securities or the providing liquidity to the investors or the raising the further capital or the funds, as I mentioned that the company wants additional funds, then they can go for the further. Means I'm talking about the listed company to further raise the funds, right? So this is a primary difference you have to understand to totally. Otherwise, it's very difficult for to understand the rest of the terms of the IPO. So IPO is going to traded into the primary market, and the companies who are already listed in the stock exchange, they are going to do the trading or the subsequent FPOs like the 2 3 days before we have seen the Adani's FPO. That is called it in the secondary market and not the primary market, right? Now, next slide, please.
Is it audible, sir? Not audible, sir. Hello? Hello? Participant can answer.
Yeah, audible.
No.
Am
No,
I
now
audible?
audible. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
sorry. I probably some of the things happen.
Okay, okay, okay. Go ahead.
Uh,
NSE, BSE.
Okay, so basically probably I don't know where I have missed it, but now these are the two stock markets, right? Wherein we generally do our trading. If any of the IPOs are traded, Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange. We heard this terminology many times. Now, National Stock Exchange 50, it's the Nifty. We call it as a Nifty. It's a stock market index in NSE. However, stock exchange sensitive index, that is a Sensex. We call it as a Sensex, which is the stock index or the market index into BSE. This is difference, please note this difference, right? NSE stock index is a Nifty which gives the top 50 stock indexes. However, Bombay Stock Exchange or the BSE gives the Sensex top 30 index. Correct. Now, NSE is we always called it, NSE is the biggest stock exchange in India, while the BSE is India's oldest stock exchange. Please remind these differences because we understand the difference of the both the stock exchange is required. I will come to the some of the points after this answer. So probably I have mentioned the number of the companies listed in BSE and the BSE, which may vary. Please don't go the exact number or the me that this is the number or whatever. I have just tried to find the info from the BSc and NSC as well.
Approximate, it's okay.
Right? However, the
Approximate.
uh, we may have the in our mind that or maybe the many of the participants have the question that the Dutch company have the choice to listing the specific stock exchange, or is the process of listing in the stock exchange is same or different point? Or can one company trade the shares in both exchange?
Why
Or
is breaking, sir? Why is
choice is
breaking? Why is it breaking?
hello? Can you please
Why
hello?
is this? Tell me, sir.
Uh,
Okay, sir. Sir, sure.
Yeah,
Is it
please
better?
can you go on mute because I'm echoing the. Okay, so now these are the some of the questions. Probably the why price difference in same shares. Means one company shares is different price in BSE and some difference in NSE, right? Can you buy the share in BSE and sell in NSE and vice versa, etc. So basically, these are all the questions probably come up in mind. But frankly speaking, that we are not going to do all this. We need to have to conduct the other sessions for the these two stock exchange related part. But I will just ensure that these are the basic difference of the national stock exchange and Bombay stock exchange, where the companies have the freedom to list in any of the stock exchange to the criteria set by the SEBI. However, the stock exchanges are the regulated by the SEBI. It's a rules, a guidelines, and everything. So most of the companies are prefer choice whether it's NSE or PSE, right? Let me just next slide, please. Okay. No, no, no. Back one. Back. This one. Okay. So why company go into public, right? As I earlier mentioned at the beginning, that the companies want to go into IPO process in order to select the route of IPO. And the many of the companies has not yet been selected, though they are in the huge capital, but they have not yet been listed. So it's not mandatory for the company to go into IPO. But the many companies are choosing go to the IPO, there are the certain things. So getting listed on the Indian stock market is considered one of the highest achievements of the end of the business, right? That we need to have to consider in mind. As well as the private companies go public in order to generate capital to help further their growth, reduce debts, and in fact fund the business operations as well. Going from a private company to a public one known as a IPO process, where we are coming. So both the advantages and disadvantages are there. But the instead of the major disadvantages, the advantages are more while companies will be listed. So if you see the slide wherein there are the certain uh, specific pointers I have jotted out that the raise money. So to raise the capital or to raise the additional funds for the business, that is the one point. The second one is the allow insiders to access funds. So basically, the with many of the startups or many of the companies, there are the investors or the anchor investors who are investing the money for the long time. They want to generate or they want to get their money returned back in terms of the profit or whatever. So to allow the insiders to access the funds, that is one part. Then the grant rentability. So once the company is listed, that company then becomes the huge people are publicly known, and hence company want to do businesses that is going to be the good. Then the increased awareness, like depend on the company. So again, that's the awareness to the public that this is the authentic company, the products are authentic, and this is the public listed company that the public has invested the and so many aspects are there to attract the top talent. Once the company is listed, so naturally the people's perception or the viewpoint is going to be so people are always there are the main senior management people who are always people to go into listed company instead of the private company, irrespective of the valuation and irrespective of the company's name. Right? So that way the IPO is important in terms of the company. Disadvantage, I can highlight the major disadvantages, but yes, the once company is listed, then company is having to adhere the rules and regulations of the SEBI. Quarterly results need to have to declare, audit need to have to done within a specific time frame. There are the lots of restrictions on the board and the management and company. So these are the certain disadvantages are there. However, the one more advantage which I forgot to highlight, once the company raises the money, so in private company, company is going to raise fund from the banker, that is with the interest. However, here the public money is there, which is there is which company can go and utilize that money without interest, and that too also the without time, and that money can be utilized for the expansion of the business operation. So also the research and development facility can do the company or the many things like. So and we always have the mindset that a financially sound company might also choose to float many expansion plans. That's how the IPO is important for the company, right? Next slide, please. Hope till now you are able to understand what we are discussing. And, if any questions, please jot it out your questions, and then at the end of the session we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Now, once we decided to go for an IPO, so the basic understanding needs to have in place that the which company or the eligibility criteria for the company. It's not easy that the any company can go and file an for an IPO. No, the company needs to have or the SEBI needs to have to follow the certain regulations prescribed by the SEBI, right? Companies and so many laws are there. So that I'll just explain you what is it exactly the requirement. So the track record. So the first is the track record, that is the company should have the track record at least 3 years. Now coming to the another point, let me just highlight the before I mention that point. The, there is a slight difference of the listing of the company in BSE and NSE. That's why I have explained what is the BSE and NSE stock exchange related part. And there is a slight difference in both of that one. So we are focusing on the NSE listing part because we don't want to go into that detail discussion, right? So let me just explain you the criteria. So the track record. So company should have the track record at least the 3 years. So it must have the net tangible assets of 3 crore calculated on restated or the consolidated basis in each of the preceding 3 years. Please note that one. Also, it must have an average operating profit of at least 15 crore rupees. When I am saying all these pointers, there are the certain loopholes or there are certain gaps are there. It's very detailed discussion, but I am just highlighting the basic pointers, right? It must have the net worth of at least the 1 crore rupees in each of the preceding 2 full years, calculated on a restated or consolidated basis, right? It has also changed its name within past years. It must have earned at least 50% business. Most of the time, companies have changed their name. So that 50% business has to be come from that name change company. I'm not talking about before IPO process, the company needs to have to change the name, that is from the ABC Private Limited to the ABC Limited. I'm not talking about that business. I'm talking about the prior to that if company has changed any name, then that name, that business, 50% business has to come from that the name change. Also the issuer or the promoter group or the directors or the sales shareholders should not be debarred from assessing the capital market by SEBI. That is also the one part we have to consider. Uh, the promoters or the directors were not in any litigation or the any symptoms they have been served or they have been barred by the any organizations, bankers. The company has to be bankers has the barred the company, or these are the norms which we have to consider or the probably these are the main crucial norms we can. Also, promoters and directors should not be categorized as the willful defaulters. This is what exactly I was trying to say, or the fraudulent, correct? So this is the main criteria. Or the again, if I go through the BIF, sorry, BIFR or IPO, so the company should not receive any winding up. Means initiated the winding up or the not referred for the BIFR. Right? So these are the basic eligibility criteria which need to have considered since there are many other things. But frankly speaking, it is not possible for me to cover in a 2 3 minutes slide since we have the n number of slides. Yeah, this is the basic criteria. You just keep it in mind. Right? Next slide, please. Yeah. So let's understand now. As of now, we have understand the three core factors. That one is the what is the market. So where the IPO goes, what is the primary market and the secondary market, both the market we understand. Then we understand the stock exchange, NSE and BSE. Also now we understand the why company go into the public, so the basic things. Also the eligibility criteria of the company, right? Now let's understand the more of issues. Why this is also the important because we heard this terminology many of the times during this IPO. But what is it exactly? So let's understand, and this is a very crucial and important one for the IPO perspective. So when we are saying the issues, there are the different types of issues out there, right? Public issue, right issue, bonus issue, private placement. So the company issues the security to the investors. The issue can be in the form of a public issue, private placement, government issue, bonus issue, and many more that PFO, IPO, preference issue, qualifying. Once the company receives the money, it issues the certificate to the investors, right? The securities can be issued at the face value of any of the company, or the premium value, or the par value, we can call it. When the issue closes, the securities are traded in the secondary market, correct? Means, as I mentioned, that's why coming from that the once the securities are traded, then that is in the secondary market. The trading in the secondary market can happen on the stock exchange or the bond market or the derivative. So it is always to consider that part, right? Now let's go one by one. The what are the public issues? What are the right issues or the bonus issues? Next slide, please. So I will be explaining all that. Details here. Next slide. Yeah, exactly. So let's understand all the issues, right? So first one is a right issue. So it's done by the Algerian listed company. So here the company issues shares. What is the right issue exactly? So let me just give that some time. So the company issues shares to existing shareholders by offering them to purchase more. That is the right issue. The issue of I think someone is can go on listening. In the right issue exactly, the investor have a choice of buying the shares at a discount price of a specific share when the company is issued. It enhances the control also of the existing shareholders of the company. Correct? So, if you see the right issues, I have just jotted out the few of the points for your easy reading. That the is of the clear ratio of the numbers. Correct? Also, it is the first one is an already listed company. So keep it in mind. This one, the right issue, bonus issue, preferential issue, all these issues are the traded in the listed company, already listed company, more precisely. So now the what is the bonus issue? So when company issues fully paid additional shares to its existing shareholders for free, that is we called it as a bonus. So we heard that the things that अरे मेरे 10 shares थे कंपनी ने मुझे 10 bonus shares. This is what exactly the bonus is, correct? So the company issues shares from its free reserves of equity premium account, and these shares are in the nature of the gift to its current shareholders, and not they are going to be charged or the asking you the any additional amount, correct? Now coming to the preferential share, this is also done by the listed company. So the preferential issue is one of the quickest method for a company to raise capital for their business, right? Both listed and unlisted companies also can go for the preferential issues as well. So that is not an issue. It is important to note that the preferential issue is neither a public issue nor a right issue.
ते CW ची मीटिंग आहे.
Can you please go on mute? I think
CW ची
someone,
मीटिंग आहे म्हटलं. मी ऑलरेडी एका मीटिंग मध्ये आहे जॉइन.
audience, it's humble request that all other people, many people are there call and the live session. So please follow the ethics and etiquettes that we should on a mute. Sorry, but it will be a bit harsh on this. Sorry. So the preferential issue, hope you got the idea about the preferential issues also. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, if you see the QIP, FPO, and IPO, right? As I already told you in the earlier chart, where the how the issues has been the bifurcated. So now the QIP means Unified Institutional Placement is the another type of private placement basically. So the listed company issues shares or debentures, okay, or any other security, not including warrants. Please note this point. You know, and these securities are convertible in nature, correct? So QIB basically are we can say the qualified institutional buyer or qualified institutional placement basically QIB or QIP. We will use the term. So the QIB purchase these securities and the investors who requisite financial knowledge and the expertise to invest into the capital market. So basically these are the another type of the issues I can say. And coming to the FPO, further public offer or the follow-on offer on the FPO, we always called it as. So the when a listed company on the stock exchange announces fresh issue of the shares for a general public, then it is called it as a FPO. So the listed company does this to raise additional funds. This is a good example of the 2 days back I had mentioning earlier slide that Adani's FPO has been came into the market. So that was a IPO and not a IP. So please understand this both. Now coming to the IP. So the initial public offering, as we called it as. So the name says it is a fresh issue of the equity shares or the convertible securities by a unlisted company, right? So these securities are traded means are offered for a sale to the general public. Generally, which exactly we are discussing in the later slide. So after the process of listing, the company shares it traded in the stock exchange. Then it is going to be become a listed company. So all other issues which we have discussed, that was done by the listed company, and the IPO is a unlisted company. Where the company is going to sell their shares to the general public or the other investors, and then become traded into the business. Right? Next slide, please. Yeah. So the price discounts. Now let's understand. Now here we have understand the some of the basic things. Now let's understand the modes of issues we have discussed just now, where the IPO. Now let's understand the IPO mode of price discovery. Basically, the IPO it's a two type of mode. It is a fixed price issue, and another one is a book building. In the legal framework, we call or we use this terminology. So basically, the IPO go into the two phases. One is a fixed price issue and the book building issue. So what is it exactly? I will also explain to that part and the difference between of them. So the book building, most of the companies are use the book building issue. So what is it exactly the book building means? So it is a type of process that an underwriter in the bank or the whatever uses to figure out at what price should an IPO to be sold. Right? That is called it as a book building. So the fund manager submits the number of shares they wish to purchase and what price. That is, book building is a very lengthy process and a very crucial process. I will also come to that. And this helps the underwriters to determine the value and initial share price of the IPO. So hence this process is a very crucial and the important one. The maximum companies, I can say that the 90% of the companies are using the IPO route by way of the book building. Hardly few companies are using the fixed price, right? Even the book building is basically the process using IPO for efficient price discovery. I can more precisely say it is a mechanism where the during the period of for which the IPO is open, bids are collected from investors at various prices, which are above or equal to the floor price probably, and then it is going to be the drafted by the merchant bank. Okay? Sorry. Hmm. Yes, please. Yeah. Here is the basic difference between the uh, fixed price method and the book building method. So we let's consider the 4 points: pricing, assessment of demand, effectiveness, and the pricing. We don't want to go to the other points. It is just for our academic knowledge that these are the two rules for the IPO which the most of the companies using. Right? Let's understand the fixed price method. So securities are issued in the IPO at a predetermined price. Means in fixed price, name itself indicate that the where the your price of the share is fixed one and it is not going to vary. However, in book building process, the final issue price is not known in advance. So when we are the shareholders or when we are applying for the share, so we just need to know that the X company's IPO is coming into the market. However, we never know that the what price that IPO is going to be coming up, right? A price range with a lower and the upper band. It is not the fixed one. So we always see the price range is 340 to 355, whatever. It's depend on the price band, right? Which is going to be the announced by the issuer at the later stage, right? And after the bid from the investors, final price will be decided to offer the shares. Exactly the book building process. So, what is the response from the investors? How the roadshows are going to be happen? And all the factors are considered, and then book building process has been started. And basis on that, the final value, whether it is lower band to upper band, then the both the values are going to be ascertained and then finalize it. However, in the fixed price, the value is decided and fixed, and it is publicly known that the X amount 350 rupees is going to be the value of the share. Now coming to the assessment of the demand. So demand for the securities can be known based on the subscription, wherein in fixed price company came to know that the how much demand is going to become because the price has already been disclosed to the general public and they knows the what is the demand. However, in book building, demand of the securities can be known every day based on the bid. So let me give you the example. If company giving an advertisement to make sure that the issue is open, so every day evening they are receiving the bill, right? Prior to also that, before the book building process, they are also receiving the demands of the share right? Means I'm talking about the later stage. Over the prior book building stage to how the investors or the funds or the bankers are showing the interest in the particular company's IPO. This is on that the demand, means that the assessment of the company is going to be finalize the price. Now the effectiveness. So the chances of the setting a fair price for the company shares are very rare, right? However, in the book building method, is still it is better way of the pricing to share as a demand for the issuer shares in the market is driving. Basically, it's a purely the demand and supply ratio are there. Fixed price method, it's very limited things are there, and that's why the maximum companies are not uh, routing the IPO through the fixed price method, and the, they are using the book building process, right? As I mentioned that the preference, like even not in India, but US, UK, European Union, they are also using this method for the listing of the company. That is a book building, right? Next slide, please. Hope till here the concepts are. I'm running too fast because we have to cover many topics or the many aspects of the IPO, and I would like to understand you the IPO process, and these are the all the basic concepts, right? So till here the all the things are. You can put the in the comment box as well. Exactly. The we have mentioned the fixed price issue. So this is how the fixed price issue. It is just the illustration for how to read this slide. So see here, if you see the second line for cash at a price of 105 per equity share. Here they have fixed price. However, if you see the book building process, there is a always two prices, 345, 355, whatever. Since I'm just giving you the rough numbers, but uh, they always quote the two prices, right? It is just for the illustration. So if you see the price is already prior to the IPO, no price discovery mechanism is used. All application for shares have to be made at the price mentioned else they are considered. In book building process, there are the investors who can apply at the market side as well. Even we can apply the IPO at the 340. If it is a 340 and the 350 range, we can apply for the 340. However, in fixed price, you have to apply at that particular price only. Otherwise, your application is going to be invalid. That bid can be considered as invalid. We can see more precise, right? Next slide, please. No, no. Yeah, yeah, it's visible. It's visible. So we understand the process. So the fixed price issue and the book building issue. Now the book building issue within the certain criteria that have been put by the SEBI, right? The rules regulations has been prescribed under the many laws. So we are not discussing the laws and the sections and anything. Since this session is for the academic review, so let's understand the basic concept. So the company may offer a maximum of 20% price band in which one can bid for shares, right? This is the one criteria is the. Then the second one is the price band is independent of face value, right? So that is the another one. Excuse me. As I mentioned, one more point that is lower price, lower band, lower price band, and the cap price that is a higher band. So these are the two price and two terminologies. Please keep in mind when it's a lower price and the cap price. So as I mentioned, like the 350 to 355, whatever. So that is one is a for the book build issue. Issuance price discovered on the basis of the demand at various prices. That is another aspect. The investor must specify number of shares they want to buy, price they are willing to pay per share. As I mentioned, in fixed price, you cannot apply the shares below that price. And in book built issue, there is a price range. You can apply like here is in the 100, so you can apply 200. So your bid is not going to be in line. But you have to consider that it's a subsequent procedural part or the calculations are there, how you are going to win that bid, right? So this is the book build issue and the fixed price issue. Next slide, please. Now here we reach the final means probably the many of the people are or the audience are waiting for are we really on the topic or not? And what is it exactly? Why these all things are explaining? Because frankly speaking, unless and until you understand the basics of this IPO process, you will not able to understand the inner part of the IPO, right? Here is the entire process of the IPO. The slide for view, please. No, 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 no. Keep the slide for audience and allow me a minute, please. Sorry, I have just taken a 2 seconds break. Hope I am audible. Okay, sure.
Audible.
Pardon?
Clearly audible. You are clearly audible.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now this is the exact the IPO process, right? So let's bifurcate this entire process into the three parts. One is the preparation or the approvals. Second one is the marketing and the estimation of a price range. And the third one is the launch and quotation. So though there are the different stages, maybe people are thinking and describing. So there is no set criteria for the. I have just uh, put it here the some of the stages which I feel comfortable and the bifurcated it into the three stages, right? So the first stage is the decision to go for an IPO. So the IPO is the process in India generally takes, I can say, the 4 to 6 months technically, but it's maybe the years and the company need to have to work on it prior 3 years as well. As we have seen the eligibility criteria, right? Wherein we have mentioned that the company what company need to have to mitigate the certain requirements or the rules or regulations described under the SEBI or Companies Act or whatever. So the company has to have the all that things in place so to reach or achieve that goals. The company work on that very front or the goal since last 2 years, 3 years, or maybe the many more years. And the actual process once it has been started, the IPO process, it may take the a year period also, right? So the company will issue public notice inviting application for registered investors, and then it will then allot the share. This is the we can say the one-liner process, but the entire process requires a step-by-step guidance and the guidelines. Am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay, okay, thank you. Actually, I thought, okay. So the decision to go for an IPO. So as I mentioned, that the company need to have to fulfill the eligibility criteria, right? And to start the process or to achieve that goals in that front, correct? Then the appointment of the BRLM and the legal counsel, correct? First, I will just explain this process and then one by one we have the slides. Am I audible? Again, I think I lost.
Audible, sir. It's clear.
Able. No, sorry, I think because everything was just I'll just mention the processes here and then one by one process we can go the subsequent slide. So the appointment of BRLM and the legal counsel, that is the one stage. The due diligence means the company need to have to go through the vast due diligence process by the legal counsels and bankers and the SEBI and so many people. In the drafting of the draft trade hearing, actually when we are sharing the RHP, but it is actually the three documents: DRHP, draft trade hearing prospectus, RHP, red hearing prospectus, and the final one is the prospectus. Then the filing with the SEBI and stock exchange. Then the pre-marketing process. So the company need to have to do the marketing, to appoint the advertisement agencies and the printers and so many. Then the SEBI clearance and the ROC filing. So once all this process has been completed, then the SEBI clearance and the ROC filing needs to be done. Then the road shows comes to the road show. So the company has to actually go to the market. Company, the management has to go to the market. Then later comes to the book building process. Here exactly the book building, which I have mentioned. Hmm? It sounds as echo, no, no, because it is echo to me. Or please back slide, please. Yeah. So here the book building process, which I have explained earlier, right? So the once we reach this process, then only the company is using this route of the book building. Uh, team is my sound is echoing because it is a lot actually. Okay. Anyway, uh, then the once the book building process is done, then the price and allocation, as I mentioned, in the book building process, the company has to determine the price and then come to the conclusion and then uh, issue has to be further completed. So the price and allocation, then the here the I have mentioned the prospectus. So once you go through the drafting of RHQ to the final prospectus, there are the three stages, right? Then come to the listing process. Then the funds transfer to the issue. So this entire IPO process has lots of people or the agencies are involved. Maybe it's frame the lots of rules of regulations, and we need to have to adhere to that rules while we are working on this whole process. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. Lots of background sound is there. Can you go on mute, please? Some of the people are. Just second. I think it's still lots of people to me. Sorry. Sorry. Now let's understand the process of the timeline. Correct. So basically, the timeline is a huge details are there to achieve a timeline because you need to have to keep it in mind that while we are processing for the IPO, once the process has been started or initiated, then the each and every step is the time bounding. You have to adhere that time. And sometimes we need to have to address the queries of the city within 2 hours or the 1 hour, or the same day, or the within 24 hours. This it's depend on the query or depend on the which stage of the IPO you are in. And that's the reason the timelines of IPO is very crucial and important. So it is just a broader timeline. However, once at the any of the stage, and now let's assume that the study observation I have mentioned 4 to 8 weeks. But the many times it happens that the city has raised the multiple queries and the multiple exchange of the queries with the city by our PR elements, different peer managers who are interacting with them. So it is the true process that the council has to address that query, and then again we need to have to address or to specify that queries to the city, right? It may take the time as well. But the general timelines are how the council has the 23 weeks, but it may be the vary depending on the company to company, IPO process, or the query, or the description of the BRLM you have mentioned into the DRHP stage or the DRHP document, right? Also, the due diligence, I have mentioned the 4 to 5 weeks, but there may be the possibility that the many of the company's documents are not available. The legal counsels or the bankers may ask you the documents, and that means you have to fulfill the requirements at the given point of time. Correct? Next slide, please. Now, this is the one more part of the board approval. Right? As of now, we understand the basics and the step-by-step process of the IPO. This is the one of the process which I
Hello?
have mentioned
हेलो
IPO process slide.
आशीर्वाद जी बताओ
Hello.
क्या बताऊं
Yeah.
कुछ
Please go
बढ़िया
on
है
mute, please. Right.
ऑफिस में
So a decision to the board for
हाँ
IPO
बस बता
or time we require the
ठीक
internal approvals from the board that we need to
हाँ
have.
ऑफिस जाओ ऑफिस ऑफिस
Someone is on unmute, please. So the board and shareholders approval is required. So before we initiating anything, so the board need to have to form the IPO committee, right? So the board meeting for the IPO is keeping on record the potential offer for sale, that is IPO route, and then the setting up of the IPO committee. This is the first stage which we need to have to consider, that the IPO committee has to be formed by the board and the shareholders. Then the approval or the authorization for offer for sale of the selling shareholders. Then the company needs to have to ascertain that the selling shareholders, who are the selling shareholders, and that approval or the authorization needs to have to go by the board, right? Then coming to the shareholders meeting for approve the three, four things like the fresh issue of the shares under section 81 1A of the Companies Act. Then the ESOP scheme for their employees, right? ESOP means employee stock option is there. So, or the ESPS. So, the company has to determine the ESOP scheme and then the board has to approve that ESOP scheme. We increase the authorized capital. Then the this approval is also required because it is crucial stage before the IPO. Then the amendment in article of association of the company because the company name has to be changed from private limited to the limited. So that amendment has to be done by the company. Correct? Uh, Next slide, please. So this is the continuous slide for the board approval. Then the appointment of the intermediate. Right? So this has to be approved by the IPO committee and the board. So BRLM, so book and lead manager, syndicate member, stabilization agent. We come to terminologies in the latest slide. Then the domestic and international legal counsel for the due diligence purpose. Then the registrars to the issue. Who all are these people agencies that we will discuss in a later slide. So I will just mention here that the board requires to approve all these people. Then advertising and PR agency. Then filters need to have to approve by the board. Then the IPO collection bank to the issue. Then the IPO grading agency, right? Then the monitoring agency. Monitoring agencies, if applicable, I have mentioned specifically if applicable. So this is the rider. I will come to that point on the later slide. Why this monitoring? Not in every company IPO, this monitoring agency is required. It's a certain criteria has been specified. If the company's IPO is that information, then only that monitoring agency is required. Next slide, please. Approve the offer document at various stages. So the board need to have to approve that the offer document like the whether it's a DRHP stage or the RHP stage or the prospectus, right? So DRHP prior to the filing to the CD, RHP prior filing to the RHP, and the final prospectus with the RHP. So all these documents, final documents, mandatory required the board action. Always keep it in mind. And what are all these documents? Why DRHP, why RHP, and what is the prospectus? We'll discuss later. That's right. Then the changes in RHP or the prospectus directed by ROC. Once we file this document approved by the board, then if the changes has been suggested by the ROC, then also then again we need to have to give the board approval. Always keep in mind the one thing that the at any given stage of the entire IPO process, the board approval or the IPO committee approval is required at the earliest stage, right? Then the public notice if the RHP or the process. So these are the certain document stages which board approval is required. And finalize the price guide. Once the price has been finalized, it has to go to the board and the board needs to also act. In the post-issue decisions and the actions, correct? So the finalization of the issue price based on the demand, then the approve the basis of allotment as finalized in consultation with the designated stock exchange. So if it's a NSE, then at the designated stock exchange allotment to be finalized and the, all that allotment to the board and the board needs to approve. Correct? Next slide, please. Now, here we are the appointment of the BRLM, book run lead manager. So many times we heard this terminology that BRLM, right? So the, I have just jotted out this chart for the sake of easy convenience or the that the once the appointment of the BRLM. So in earlier slides, if you have been listened carefully, so in earlier slides, I have mentioned the BRLM at the appointment of the first stage at the entire IPO. Which slides we have kept it for a few seconds or the minute, wherein I have mentioned the BRLM. So the first stage is the appointment of the BRLM, so book run lead manager, right? So if you see the two lines are there, one is the dotted line and one is the arrangement. So the BRLM is coordinating with the legal counsels, IPO grading agency, registrars, escrow bankers, printers, advertising agency. Who all are these agencies? Also, I have mentioned the broker or the syndicate, so that process will come later, is auditor, right? AFPSBs, who are all these? So let's understand the each and every agency who are involved or participating in the IPO process. And the BRLM is playing a vital role to connecting all these agencies. Right? In our newspaper advertisement, we always see that the who are all the BRLM. In most of the cases, like the banker, ICAI, Kotak, or the Axis, these are the plays role of the BRLM. Next slide, please. Yes, right. So the lead managers, for the sake of understanding or the convenience, we can consider the lead manager or the BRLM. We can say. I have just jotted this slide with who are all the agencies or the party. It is their key responsibility and the what stage they have the appointment. You can also go through the slide, but let me just explain. So the issuer is required to appoint at least one or more merchant bankers. Merchant bankers means BRLM, who are registered under the city. It's not our the wishes and the whims that we can appoint any of the banker. I have the bank account in Axis. I means the company is having the bank account with Axis account. It's not that way. The board has to approve that process, and the merchant bankers or the BRMN is registered with the SEBI under the SEBI Merchant Banker Regulation 1992, right? Uh, then at least one of them must be the merchant banker. As I mentioned, uh, we can appoint the many BRMN. If the IPO size is bigger or the if the company is that BRMN we can appoint, yes, we can appoint the BRMN. And uh, at least one of them is a merchant banker. Please note this point. Right? SEBI holds the merchant banker primarily responsible for ensuring compliance with the disclosure requirements and other rules relating to the IPO process. So SEBI is going to be the head responsible for each and every aspect, which is going to be coordinated by the merchant banker or the lead banker or we can say BRM. The issuer can file the offer document with SEBI only through the merchant banker and it cannot go directly. If you are thinking that the company will use the SEBI and file the offer document means DRHP or RHP. So, no, the merchant banker is coordinating on behalf of the company and not company directly coordinating with the SEBI. Remember this. Then coming to the legal counsels. Here I have mentioned the domestic and international. So yes, advices on the Indian law applicable to the issuer and the IPO related aspects, and also assist the drafting and non-business sections of the offer document. When I am using the term offer document, means the RHP, DRHP of the process. I'll remember this. Also, merchant bankers typically appoint a separate law firm for the act of their Indian legal counsel transactions and the international transactions. So, always there are the two legal counsels. One is the Indian legal counsel and another one is the international legal counsel. So, international legal counsel undertakes the legal due diligence and advice for the international legal and the regulatory issues relating to the offer, also and distribution of the share, in adapting the business sections related to the offer document in larger transactions, in the economic aspects. So I can say the geographical assistance in applying the requirement of the international geography, I can say. Correct? Then coming to the auditors, right? Please see the last column where I have mentioned the appointment. So, when I say the lead manager, that is the upfront, means at the exception. Legal counsel, domestic and international, yes, that is also the upfront. Then the coming to the auditor, you can go through your existing auditor or you can appoint the new auditors as well. That is not a requirement specific. So the auditors audit and restrict the issuer's financial statement for inclusion in the offer document. They verify and verify or certify the accuracy of the financial statement presented in the offer document. And also issue the comfort letter. So the comfort letter to the not company, comfort letter to the bankers or the merchant bankers, I can say more precisely, at various stages. So the auditors need to have to ensure to give the comfort letter. Precise formats are there for the comfort letter. So during the IPO, the auditors need to have to issue them many comfort letters. When I am using the many n number of comfort letters, so the word itself says that the comfort letters means to give the comfort to the merchant bankers, whatever the financial statement present in the offer document, that is the audited and be at par with the laws, rules, and regulations. Now the registrars. So 4 weeks before filing of the DRHP with the SEBI, who are all these to register to the IPO is required to accept application form from the investors in the IPO process. And that application forms to allotment of equity, the refund of subscription where the equity shares are not allotted to the investor. That things they need to how to register has to ensure. We always like the LinkedIn and KFIN technologies. These are the registers in the many of the IPO process we have to, right? Should we take a 2 minute break?
Take-
2 minutes,
Yes, sir.
2 minutes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
not more than 2 minutes, but just for otherwise it is too bombarding or the too informative for the audience. And I request audience now the interesting part is also there, so stay connected and we will get back in 2 minutes.
Quite good, sir. Very informative.
Yeah, welcome back.
Okay.
Give me a second. Yeah, welcome back all. So, hope now you understand the basic of the IPO. I do agree that I'm not going into the in both the details of the IPO, and frankly speaking, it's a too vast topic and it's too much details involved into each and every stage, and practically not possible unless and until that person either need to have the full sort of the understanding of that subject or the practically involved into that subject, right? However, as an academic knowledge, you have the I have tried my level best to understand the topic and to present the topic. Let's continue with the our, agencies or the participants, not participants, I can say the agencies who are involved into the IPO process. So as of now, we have seen the BRLM lead managers or the lead bankers, then the legal counsels, domestic and international, then the auditors, then the registrars. As of now, we have seen, right? Now let's focus on the, some of the other agencies who are participate or the involved into this process. And the IPO grading agency. When we have to appoint IPO grading agency, that the 2 weeks before filing RHP. So one more point to note here that we cannot appoint all the agencies at a one go on prior to the IPO. It depend on the when it is required or when it is the agency's specifications required in the IPO process, right? Now the IPO grading process. So basically, the IPO grading is a grade assigned by SEBI registered credit rating agency or the agency and IPO. So the grade represents a relative assessment of the fundamentals of the issue in relation to the other listed securities in India. So basically, they are the grading to their issue. So these agencies work purely to grade the IPO. Right now, coming even I can highlight more precisely that the in grading that the must note that the IPO grading is done without considering the price band at which the security is offered to the IPO. So don't consider that the IPO grading agency knows the IPO price. So it is always happens to the IPO price, right? Gradation. And investor need to make an independent judgment regarding the price at which they should bid for. So many of the investors go the IPO grading agency report and then they invest into that. Correct. In fact, this grading is generally assigned for a few point scale with a higher score indicating fundamental and vice versa. Basically, it is attempt of an offer additional information to the investor, helping them to concentrate their assessment of fundamentals of the issue on the particular block. Correct. So that's why the IPO grading, which is important one, I thought. But it is not mandatory for the issuer to get it issue graded. Please note, not mandatory. So it is not mandatory that the every IPO need to have the IPO grading agency. It is purely the company has to hire or the appoint the grading agency. And this process was made optional. In fact, in 2014, the SEBI has made it optional. I'm not the correct. Now coming to PSL, and we know all very well. Is there any technical glitch? I'm audible, right?
Audible, sir, audible.
Yeah. Depository we know very well when we are opening an account, like a Demat account, so we interact with NSA. So basically, when the company go for an IPO, they need to have the Demat agreement and Demat transfer of the share and credit of the shares of the allotment. So that the coordination of the company need to have with the depositories. Coming to the printers, probably this is something weird things many of the audience feel that what is it exactly the printers mean? Yes, we need to hire one of the printer agency for the bulk printing of the RFP, means red prospectus, forms, final prospectus, and refund order, and even timely dispatch. That agency has to ensure that the timely dispatch of all the stationery to the centers, right? So the printers are also technically important in the IPO process. Now coming to the advertising agency. So what is advertising agency? Before filing DRHP, we have to hire, and not the last stage of the building process. Actually, the before DRHP. So any advertisement agency is responsible for publicity related activities regarding the IPO and also provide the necessary information to the merchant bankers to enable them to submit the compliance certificate to SEBI. Correct? Also, advertisement agency has to play a vital role for the company that when they need to have to advertise the company means prior to the IPO or the companies assuming they need to have to publish in the newspaper or the media, right? However, there are the lots of restrictions uh, put by the SEBI, advertisement agency also, who the company is going to hire. There are the incidents where the SEBI has totally put up the fine as well on the company when they are using the advertisement agencies for their wrongdoing, means just for the prior IP publicity different way. I can say to increase the price. Or increase, I can say. Now coming to the SCSBs, self-certified syndicate bank, I can. So this is the full form, self-certified syndicate bank, SCSB. Who are all these? So basically, what is their role? To receive bids and block bid amount in the investor's bank account based on the application submitted. Also to provide FC on account transfer, unlock funds, post finalization based on allotment. So these are the roles they are playing. To address the investor grievance on account is ASBA bid, correct? So probably you see the word ASBA bid, correct? We can come to these points as well. We have the separate slide for ASBA, so we can discuss that point that time. So, now coming to escrow collection bankers. So there are the lots of bankers who are here as a escrow collection bank in the IPO process. So they are active and collecting agents, right? So before filing RHP with the RHP, so I can say the at the last stage or the prior to the last stage, we have to appoint do this activity, right? One more that the monitoring agents, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, right? So you have seen that the whole one point was there, monitoring agency, and I have mentioned that I can explain the what is their role exactly. So the SEBI's rules, ICDR regulations, if you see, where it requires that if the issue size of the IPO it exceeds 1 billion rupees, right? Then only this monitoring agency come into the picture. Because if the IPO size is more than 1 billion rupees, then the issuer is required to ensure that the utilization of IPO proceeds is monitored by the credit rating agency registered with the SEBI. So they are acting like a watchdog. So the monitoring agency will be required to submit its report to the issuer in the format of specified in the IPDR regulation on a quarterly basis. So that's the exactly the point is that the again the monitoring agency is not applicable to all the IP process or to the company, but only the specific for the one if the IPO size is more than 1 billion. Hope till here the concepts are clear regarding the agency related. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now coming to the agreement part. Till here we have seen the lots of agencies and many things. Now here the some of the important agreements which the company needs to have to execute it with the agencies. Now, so the engagement letter. Here also, if you see the slide, it is a self-explanatory. In fact, I have prepared purposely in that way that the slides are self-explanatory to understand, irrespective of the my communication, but the you can see parallelly the slide. It will be easy for an understand what is it exactly. So the one is the engagement letter. So this agreement is signed to engage the intermediaries to their services, right? The parties to this agreement are company and individual, with investment bankers, counsels to the company, auditors, registrars, and other intermediary are the parties. So I have shown you the agencies in the first slide, earlier slide, in fact, where the auditors, BRLM, registrars. So we can enter into an engagement letter with these people. What is the purpose of this engagement letter? To engaging their services, right? And to lay down the roles, responsibilities that way. So hence, again, this is also to be the once it has been approved by the board, then we can enter on execute the agreement. Coming to the BRLM, MOU or registrar MOU. Right? So the BRLM may also the same like the registrar MOU. You have to enter into some sort of the memorandum of understanding and essentially signed to lay down the roles, responsibilities left of BRLM and complete some roles, responsibilities to register in case with the they approach to the study, correct? So these need to have to consider into the these two MOUs. Coming to the escrow agreement. So the escrow agreement set out the arrangement for collection of the application or the bid amount from other investors. Company, BRLM, syndicate member, registrar, and escrow banker engage in this agreement to lay down the process for receipt of issue process and release of funds to the company. So basically, the escrow agreement we have to execute for this purpose, right? For the issue process, right? Next slide, please. Right? We have seen the three agreements: engagement letter, BRLM MOU, registrar MOU, and the escrow agreement. Now, the syndicate agreement. The purpose of this agreement is for the company, BRLM, and syndicate members to lay down the process of marketing and handling the farm. So, to appoint the syndicate at the later stage, we can find to appointment of the syndicate members is also the one of the process in the IPO. As of now, probably you have to recognize that how is and how we difficult to understand this process, but I have tried to simplify the process of the IPO. Coming to the tripartite agreement with the depository, as I mentioned that the NACDL and the CDSL, right? So these are the depositories with whom the company need to have to enter an agreement. As the name suggests, the tripartite means the company, NSDL and CDL. It for the provisions of the acting as a depositories of the company. Correct? Then the listing agreement to enter to lay down the terms of the underwriting and extent of the underwriting. So these are the some of the agreements which you need to have to execute after the boards has been approved to particular agency from time to time. Correct? And this agreement has have in place for the review and due diligence purpose as well as the later stage we have these agreements, right, for the audit purpose as well. Now the listing agreement. This is also one of the most important agreement in terms of the IPO. Listing agreement binds the company to the requirement of the listing rules and the stock exchange, right? So These are the some sort of the agreements which we need to have to execute with the agency and the respective stakeholders. Correct? Now, next slide, please. Now, let's review the disclosures in the offer document. Correct? Many of us see that the offer document wherein we have seen that there are certain disclosures which we need to have to mention. Right? Being a company, you have to disclose certain things specifically or we can say the mandatorily to disclose in the offer document. As I've earlier, again, time and again, I am reminding to the audience that the offer document means DRHP, RHP, or the prospectus. So DRHP is the one stage, subsequently the RHP is the second stage, and the prospectus is the last stage. So keep it in mind when we are saying the offer document, that means these are the documents. Right? Let's go through the step by step. So what are the disclosures are required to be disclosed in the offer document? So first one is the capital structure. So the share welding pattern, securities premium account, then the holding of the promoter, means how much promoters holding is there, right? There is a specific criteria laid down by the SEBI. How much the promoter needs to have. 20% is the minimum threshold has been listed by the SEBI for the promoters holding. Below than that, promoter holding means that IPO cannot be proceed further. Right? So minimum 20% is the threshold for the promoters holding. Then the disclosure about the ESOPs means maximum companies are issue the ESOPs to the employees. So that disclosures has to be there in the offer document. Correct. So basically, altogether, one part is the capital structure. Coming to the second part, object of the issue. So how the company go for the IPO? So what is the object of that issue? So the total requirements of the fund, how much fund is required, and the means of financing is undertaken by the issuer company confirming firm arrangement finance to the verifiable means for 75% to the means of the finance. So basically, the means of financing is the what are the bifurcations the company is going to be the utilizing the funds. Okay? Then the details about the appraisal of the project. Whatever the projects company is going to be entered into, so the what are the appraisals in later stage after the IPO or the funds which company is going to raise by way of the issue. Then the interim issue of the fund. Correct. So these are the certain objects of the issues we need to have to jotted or the described in the offer document. Coming to the business. So description about the industry in which the company operates. So basically you have to describe the in detail from the inception to till date of the company business. What company was into, what was the business. Some of the companies have the multiple verticals are there. Some of the companies have the specific oriented businesses. Means only one product is there. So that entire description of the business need to have to jot it. Then the detailed description about the same way I have referred to the point one. Then the risk factors. Yes, this is the very crucial point in the entire offer document, where the risk factors is the even if you see the newspaper advertisement, that is a major advertisement which I used in the newspaper, wherein also the risk factor, one of the points is always mentioned in that advertisement, right? So basis on that risk, the investor need to have to ascertain whether I need to have to invest into this company or not. If the risks are very higher side, let's assume that let me give you the fair example in terms of if the company is having litigation wherein the crores of rupees are involved, and after the IPO, if that litigation is going against the company, then that will be the significant impact of that company share in the business. and hence that company's entire stake is going to be in risk. Hence that risk factor has to occur. The same way the promoters, if that company's promoters are in the criminal litigations, involved into the criminal litigation, then that is also the same thing. And the tax litigations are also there. Companies having the so many tax litigations in different places, and there is a huge demand. So that company's whole stake is in. So that risk factors have to articulate by the ARLMs or the underwriters in such a way where that the people or the investors are going to understand what is the risk while investing into the company. Correct? Coming to the company management. So the details about the board of directors and the various committees. So as we have mentioned that before we go for an IPO, the company needs to have to ensure all the policies are to be in place, whether the cost, whether the anything and everything. I have just given the random example. All the policies has to be in place. The committee has to be formed. The IPO committee and all other committees and the details about the key management person. We called it as a short form KMP. So before IPO, the company needs to have to appoint or disclose who are the KMPs in the company and their detailed description and their detailed salary, course, everything. You can see the offer document at any point of time, wherein you can find whosoever the KMP has been disclosed by the company, there all the details has to be mentioned in the offer. In which companies they are become the director, the independent director or the board of directors or whatever, all the details has to be correct. Next slide, please. Now coming to the other disclosures that financial disclosure. So wherein I am conducting the session for the ICAI, so obviously you guys are the more expert than me in figures and the finance. So the auditors reports to have the 5 years restated financials, then all subsidiaries. Sometimes the company is also having the subsidiaries. The board of directors, yes, audited uh, reports, financial reports, consolidated financial, everything they need to have to interpret. So I'm not going to explain much on the financial because you guys are more expert than me in the financial. Correct? So coming to the MD and so detail discussions for the management disclosures basically this is one. So the and the capital expenditures and the cash flow and the liquidity. Now the litigation, as I mentioned in the earlier that the is there any litigation? I'm running a bit fast because there will be another 20 slides. So I have to run quickly because of time is constant for us. We are running out of the time. So the litigations has a default. So basically, if the company is having a major litigation, as I earlier given you an example, tax litigations or any other litigations, these the promoters, group companies, or the directors, or the group companies, or the subsidiaries, or whatever, right? So that also need to have to ensure. Coming to the next slide, please. Just a second. Yeah. So the due diligence. As I earlier mentioned, the company has to go through the thorough due diligence process before IPO. We have seen that we need to have to appoint the at the time of BRLM. So BRLM is going to appoint legal counsels. One is the domestic legal counsel, another one is international legal counsel, who are going to do the thorough due diligence of the company's intellectual property rights like trademarks, copyright, patents, how much because this is the again the one of the intangible assets for the company, and that is a more important and crucial part of whether this any litigation around the company in respect of their intellectual property, right? Then the reputation, is there any specific in respect of the reputation of the company has to has that due diligence has to then the facilities. I'm not going to in-depth detail. The name itself is easy for understanding. Finance due diligence, strategy, regulation, products and services, market, then the HR due diligence, employees related. So the thorough due diligence of each and every vertical of the company need to have in place, and that to be certified by the both the councils, right? Or the bankers council, and then the subsequently, the bank is also going to review that the due diligence which has been confirmed by the legal counsels. And if the bank is having the query, then again it is routed to the bank, to counsels to company, and the company is still going forward back. So the process. So the due diligence takes the time while they are reviewing all the documents of the company. Next slide, please. Yeah. Here we come for what is it RHP and IPO and how is it different from the DRHP. As I mentioned, that one must need to have to understand the difference between the RHP and DRHP. We have heard that these terms also in the earlier slide and my earlier conversation. So a prospectus must include all the relevant information. As I already explained, what information need to have to capture in the prospectus, and to make risk-free analysis before investing, right? Including basic details about the company and the securities. So each and every details has to have be incorporated in the offer document. So what is DRH? So DRHP is nothing but a non-finalized or the draft kind of version of RHP, which is called the DRHP. So basically, it is the filed with the SEBI before IPO, and once SEBI confirms or approves its recommendation or the stages at the different stages, in the final version, we need to have to file it to the SEBI. That is called it as a RHP. So basically, it's a name itself indicates a draft, and it comes into the RHP. Right? It is a type of preliminary legal prospectus, we can call it as a serving as a type of linkage between the potential investors and the company. So we cannot directly go and file the RHP to the SEBI. So first we have to file the draft trade link prospectus, and then the coming to the RHP. Once that SEBI has given us the so this is also the multiple process, multiple interactions. Once SEBI has raised the concern in particular part of the, let's take an example that if SEBI has raised the concern on the, one of the part which we have discussed in earlier slides of the prospectus, then we have to address that query in a proper way to our BRLM, and then they submitted their query to the SEBI, and then once the SEBI is satisfied, maybe may not be, but it's a again the ongoing process, it's a revolving process till the SEBI is going to be satisfied with that particular part, right? Now the what is the exactly the RHP? So it is basically the red herring prospectus is a preliminary prospectus, or we can say the first prospectus which has to be filed with the SEBI, usually in connection with the company initial public offering. Right? Now it contains the majority information of the operation, future prospectus of the company, which we have discussed in the previous slides. Right? And investors can understand how the company will utilize the money raised and possible risk attached to the correct. And since this RHP document is more crucial and important. RHP also contains the details about the total number of shares, offers the fresh issue, company capital structure, business descriptions, along with the future goals of the company. So there are the many things are there which is in life. So basically, in a nutshell, I can say the RHP is nothing but the Bible of that company, basis on the investors are going to invest. Correct? Please, next slide, please. This is back. I have already explained the difference between the RSP and the SSP. So basically, this is the again the same slide. So I am not going to specify the more time on it. There are the many more slides, and it is the 5 minutes left. So we have started the 15 minutes. We can cover this 15 minutes also. So I can say the more than 20 minutes. Left. It's a now the coming to the drafting of RHP, right? So the DRHP is considered the most important document for investors interested in IPO. That is, as I explained. Now, one of the primary reasons for that has to do with the amount of information that it reveals about the company. And the entire gaming or the investment is based on that document only, correct? And just reading through one document can give you all the information that you require to make an informed investment decision. That's the why the drafting, and therefore this drafting of this document is also equally important and the crucial. Correct? Next slide, please. Let's understand the drafting. Right, this one. So while we are drafting this prospectus, I have already explained what are the points need to have to consider, like shareholder patterns, management, mitigations, and so many. So let me run through the few of the aspects you have to have considered in mind while drafting this document. Though the drafting is not in company hand, not in a specific company's employee or the board of management in hand, these draftings are going to be drafted by the councils, right? Which is voted by the DRLM and other people who are the agencies involved at that stage. However, the company need to have to understand if they are choosing the route of the IPO, they must have to keep it in mind all these factors, right? About the company, so their business has to be the specified. Then history of corporate matters, correct? Material events to be taken in place, or the company history, how the company has been evolved, how the company has been reached to this stage, what are the company's ups and downs was there, so that entire history has to be taken out, correct? Then the management and promoter sector. So all the management and the promoter background need to have to mention their experience, what is their experience specifically in uh, the company which is running in that business, correct? So that capabilities need to have to be jotted up. Then the financials, so the company's income statement, balance sheet, and then last 5 years balance sheet, so the finance related part. So we have already discussed that. Risk factors, as I already mentioned, that what are the risks involved into the company's things. So all that risk has to be jotted in a specific way. So the see while we no sorry, extremely sorry, not we, while councils are going to do these risk factors, they are going to articulate that the factors in a such a way where the people, the investors should not think or they should not be worried about the company and the IPO is going to be great. Oh, there is a risk. When we are doing the business, there are the lots of litigations are there, lots of tax notices are there, some government notices also you can say the apart from the litigation, directors' names is involved into some of the cases or some of the company aspects are the state. So there are so many things are there. Apart from that, business risk are also. I'm talking only about the legal risk, but there are the other risks also there. Business risk, so that also considered. So the litigation, again the same thing which we discuss. Next slide, please. So the capital structure. So the capital information of the company, existing shareholder structure, how many shareholders are going to be put their shares into the IPO, and so many. Then object of the issues which we have already considered, the basis of issue price, right? When we are considering the basis of the issue price, so we have to consider certain factors, right? So that to also to be brought out in the offer document. Management discussion at MD&A, which I have mentioned that the management discussion, the analysis of financial condition at the result of operations. We always use the short form that MD&A, correct? So management discussion, information related to the place of the company, business plan, business development, performance, and so many things. So that to also be captured in that document. Next, please. Now, these are the crucial factors or the important factors we have considered so far. Now, there are the other factors also which need to be considered. Correct? That is one is the receipt ROC filing to be made by the company since inception. So the many documents of the ROC compliances related need to have to review during the due diligence procedural part. Then the minutes of the meeting or the shareholders or the issue of the company. Then industry report also we have to consider in the collaboration agreement or the shareholders agreement, then the credit ratings. Many of the credit rating agencies have been given the credit to the company. So that to also consider the third party reports or the certifications, right? And the techno-economic viability report, like the each and every company's business nature is different. So companies always opt for the techno report from the whatever the tech agencies are there. So they are always give the comparative reports for the easy understanding. Next slide, please. So basically, this is the content of the table just for the illustration purpose of the offer document or the prospectus, correct? And I urge or the request to all the audience that before investing, you, you have to go through the prospectus, because once you go through the prospectus, you will easily understand. I agree that the prospectus is not a small one. Each and every company minimum trade to 400 pages. So I agree that it's not easy to go through each and every aspect, but I think try to cover up and go through the basic details of the company before investing into the any of that. Being as a individual investor, I can say. Please, next slide, please. This is a sample snapshot wherein you can most of the times we see advertisement in the newspaper, right? So this advertisement you will see the risk factors, details, who are going to liquidate their shares and everything, and BRLM and that's why it is a concise document which is going to be advertised in the newspaper for the investors, retail investors. Next slide, please. Coming to the roadshows, as we have probably in earlier slide, you have seen the entire process wherein the roadshow was the one part. Many of the people who are not aware about the roadshow, let me just explain what is it exactly, or the this term may be new to many of the people. So roadshow is nothing but like a company is going into the market, right, to advertisement their issues. Right? The goal of the roadshow is to generate enthusiasm surrounding the company's upcoming IPO, which means the success of the IPO depends on the successful roadshow. A roadshow is a series of presentations made in a various locations leading up to an IPO. So basically, they are going to teach, means who they means the management people of the company are going into the market and to pitch to investors. And the roadshow is a sales pitch basically, or the promotion made by the underwriting firm, company management team. Underwriting firm means joint collaboration. Who are bring the investment? So obviously that the underwriting firm. Right? So like in our case, means any of the cases I mentioned, the ICAI or the ICAI. So these are the underwriting firms who are the investors, and the underwriting firm and management are going into the market and to approach to the potential investors before going into the market. So roadshow generally takes place in major cities and are the interest in the upcoming performance. So the potential investors are introduced to the company, its history, and the key person. Always remember that a successful roadshow is often critical to the success of the IPO. And the goal of the roadshow is to just generate excitement. Correct. So, but equally, it is important for the successful IPO. Now, the roadshow is why essential. It provides the forum to the investor where the company can communicate directly to the potential investor and address any concern or highlight success. So all this is going to be happen before listing or before advertisement of the issue. Correct? And the once roadshow is complete, the final prospectus is going to be created and distributed to potential investors. So till this time, that they are not going to share any of the prospectus to the investors. Next, please. Book building process we have discussed just in this slide. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So who are the participants in the IPO? So one must understand that who are the participants. Let's categorize it the issuer, participant, and investor. Who is the issuer? Means unlisted company or listed company. Listed means in FPO and unlisted means in IPO. Who are the participants? Who are the participants? The syndicate members, underwriters, depositors, stock exchange, all we have already. And who are the investors? Investors, the RII, UNI, QIB, Anchor Investors. Let's discuss these two also in the next slide. Next, please. Yeah. So, who all other investors involved into the IPO process? And this is very important slide. So, there are the categories defined in IPO. So, who all other investors? So, I have just broadly described that. Let me describe. Sometimes people say the four types of investors, some people say the three types of investors, but irrespective. So, I have more especially for the understanding. Uh, Hello. Yeah. Just for the sake of understanding, I have categorized this into the more groups, right? So, at the outset, note the market regulators has categorized investor participants in the IPO. So, these are not the invented or the created by the person or the company. So this has been the participant list SEBI has been categorized, correct? And they have specified certain rules and regulations for these investors as well. So let's understand the RI, retail investor, right? First one category is the retail investor, like the we people. So this is a one of the type of investor whose application value is less than 2 lakh, correct? And the minimum allocation of the investor in IPO is the 30% of the total shares issued. As per the SEBI, in case of the oversubscription, all retail investors will be allotted at least one lot of share. If one lot per investor is not possible, then the lottery system is used to distribute share to the investor, which many of us often face this type of things in while we are applying for the loan. Correct? Coming to the next type of investor, that is a NII or the HNI, means high net worth investors, right? Or the non-institutional investor, we called it. So this is the type where the 2 lakh and above shares which they are going to be buy. That's why they are categorized as a high net investor. Correct? So, who are the people? And sorry to say, 15% quota is to be reserved for this people, right? This type of investor. And who are all these investors? So, resident Indian individuals also be the part of this HNI, or the NNI category, and the eligible NRI or the APO or the companies or the societies or the trust companies. So, these are types of the NII in this category we can consider. Now, the coming to the third category, that is QIP, wherein that the 50% quota has to be allotted to the QIP. And this is a very important for a company who is coming up with an IPO. So the underwriters will large chunk of IPO shares to the QIIs at a lucrative price before start of the IPO. And if the QII buy more shares, there would be the lesser number of shares available for the general, and this would result in the higher profitability. So the basically many of the times it happens that the if your QIB quota has been fulfilled or the oversubscribed, then the success of the IPO is counted. I can say. Now that QIB has to be divided into two parts. That is an anchor investor and the other QIB. And that also the quota has been defined that 50% for the anchor investors. That is the more than 10 crores. We called it as a anchor investor, which is a qualified anchor investor who should invest minimum 10 crore. Remember, correct? And the other QIB is more than 10 crore, which is a 40% quota. Now coming to the HNI, there are the two things we can see here, right? So more than 2 lakhs up to the 10 lakhs. There are the S N I I and B N I. S means small NI and B means big NI, right? So always remember this is the more than 10 lakhs small NI means uh, net worth investors, high net worth investors, or the non-institutional investors, and the big, correct? So these are the types of investors or the category of investors in the IPO process. Hope till now we can get some clear. Next, please. Yes. While we are discussing the slides, so that time I have mentioned that I will explain the ASBA process. Why this is important to understand the ASBA process? Because in many of the, can you just for a sake of convenience, leave the next slide and then come back to this slide? Yeah, just a moment. If you see the offer document that is published in the newspaper, wherein we can see the ASB, that is the ASBA. We always see this terminology in the offer document, right? So what is it exactly? Have you seen over the or tried to understand it exactly? Can you come back the yeah, thank you. So basically ASBA is as an application supported by law. So basically it's an IPO application process developed by the CB. It is an application containing an authorization to block the application money in the bank account for subscription to the IPO issue. Okay. So earlier what was happening, we need to have to pay the upfront. And then again that refund process, entire process has to be repeated. However, nowadays, because of the ASBA process, your amount is going to be, and once the shares have been allotted to you, then only it is going to be deducted from your account. That is called as the ASBA process for a simplified manner. You cannot use that block amount for any purpose, by the way. However, you can continue to earn interest with the block amount. Many of the people, because this block amount to the actual getting the shares, that is a trading plus 9 days means 9 to 10 days or some cases 8 days, some cases 5 days are required. So basically, During this period, you can get your interest on that block. Okay, but you cannot use that for your personal use. If you are a non-retail investor in wanting to invest in IPO, it is mandatory to apply through the ASBA process, right? As an investor, if you apply through the ASBA, your money is debited from your bank account only if your application is selected for an allotment. Remember, I am not going to do the process. The slide is just for your sake of more detail and the understanding how the ASBA process is happening, like the investors manual and electronic form, and the approach to the SCS, and then SCS will verify the details and all the process in the NSE, and the allotment of the shares happens, and your amount is going to be unblocked and the shares to be allotted. Next slide, please. Yeah. So now coming to the become as a shareholder, what points need to have to be considered or the broad counters. The application analysis we always call it that. So investors should take a well informed decision. Many times it happens that we always invest the money in USA basis. Someone says, or the some of the agencies says, like I'm not taking the specific name, but there are the many in the market. So they always says that the same details, and we receive the such types of indications from them, and we invest the money. But before that, being a smart investor, you have to do research on your own. So what sort of the points you have to be considered, right? The product, plant, IC, 3P. We call it as a 3P. Then the sustainability and growth of the company. Because the future is the now you have to consider the sustainability plans. Because in coming days there are so many sustainability related aspects are going to be mandatory or put mandatory or paid mandatory as a government agency. Then the business, then the number, then the stakeholders, corporate governance, corporate structure, business successions, and so many aspects. Please review or consider all these points before you are going forward. Next point, next slide, please. Yes. Now, once you become the shareholder, is your rights. So I assume that till now you understand the IPO process, uh, and you have been allotted the IPO and you become the shareholder of that company. What is your right? So one is right to receive income, means by way of the dividends of the company, or the rights of the share of the bonus, which we have discussed earlier. Right? Then right to vote in the meeting or through the proxies, or right to demand polls of voting on any resolution being the shareholders. Then the right to appoint proxies, then the right to give given by the statutory laws, the right to receive the report. So it is mandatory that the company secretary has to share the company report or the statutory book to the shareholder. And probably if you become the shareholder or invested in the companies, so you may have received all these details and aware about all these details. Next slide, please. Now, what are the advice to the investor? I am not the expert to advise the investors, but whatever the KB or the guidelines is, that's advice I am going to give. So do not deal shares in the black market or the gray market. Always remember that they do your own study or the homework by way of the prospectus or the document, and then invest in the company. Don't go by way of the black market or the gray market, which is fluctuated or the post IPO before the company is right? Invest in IPO for a long term. We always try to tend to get the profit in a short term, because there are the many anchor investors, or the as we have seen the NII or the QIBs invested into the company, and they have certain locking period, and after that locking period they always sell out their shares, and hence the share price may be the fluctuate that time. So if you are going to invest in the company, so think the longer perspective. Don't invest with the anticipation of the making quick profit. The same way I can say. So one person by PAN number, right, permitted to make only, but because if you are if you have the 2 3 accounts, and if you are applying, but ultimately it is going to be counted to the PAN number. So always remember that. So use your own funds to apply for an IPO. So don't use the black money or the deposit the money and then you come for the IPO. That is again the scrutiny nowadays. SEBI has a very rigid on the strict. If you are going to invest the 2 lakh plus shares as a retail investor. Next slide, please. Oh, a question. So, let me summarize before we go for the questions. Okay. So, let me be frank with you. Within a 2 hours period, it is very difficult and the impossible task that to understand the IPO process. However, I have tried my level best to mention or to explain the process of the IPO. Like, I could say, let me just review in 2 minutes that we have discussed the IPO at the beginning. What is IPO exactly? Then we have discussed the market. What is the financial market? What is the primary market and the secondary market? Then we discussed the stock exchange, National Stock Exchange and the Bombay Stock Exchange. Then we discuss what company, sorry, where company go into the public, right? And then what is the eligibility criteria for the IPO for the company? Then we discuss about the issues. What are all the issues like the IPO, FPO, public issues, right? And then what is the mode of issues like in IPO, fixed price issue and the book building issue, right? You have to check and verify that part as well. And later we discuss the whole IPO process stages. And where in the timeline we have the timeline. Then the board approvals we have discussed the approvals. Then the process of the appointment of the BRLM. Then all these agencies who are involved into the uh, entire IPO process. Then the agreements we need to have to execute. Apart from that, the disclosures in the offer document, then the due diligence process we have discussed. Then the difference between the RHP and DRHP we have discussed, right? How to draft the RHP and which points need to have to consider for the drafting. That we have discussed. What is the roadshow? So roadshow we have. So who are the participants and who are the what are the categories of the investors we have discussed? And the ASBA process we have discussed, and the shareholders' rights. So I have tried my level best to cover the whole process in a very short span. But trust me that this is not the easy task to cover up the such a huge topic in a 2 hours duration. But yes, if we get an opportunity in future, then definitely happy to conduct the more session on the any other topic. And one more point that I need to have to specifically mention that if anyone would like to have this presentation, you can connect with the ICMA team or me also in the LinkedIn. You can directly DM me on LinkedIn. I will be happy to share. Or if you have any questions or the concerns, that too also I can address. You can directly connect with me on via LinkedIn. Correct? And yeah, let me questions.
Sir, can I ask, sir?
Yeah, please.
There was a share capital post issue. Should not be share post issue. Share capital should not be more than 25 crores of the face value.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely right.
If it is more, what
Your voice is cracking.
has to be? If it is more, if it is more, then what can happen? If somebody big
See,
issues, size is large.
the SEBI, see, basically the SEBI has prescribed the guidelines wherein the if it's more than that, then the SEBI will give the indicators and then later says that the whatever the legal proceeding questions are there, then that need to have to initiate.
Oh, SEBI is a guideline.
Yes, yes, yes. Because ultimately, where is the stock, though you are company listed on a stock exchange, but ultimately the regulator is the SEBI for the both the stock exchange. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
reverse book building? What is that, sir? Reverse book building, what is that?
Your voice is not audible.
Reverse book building.
No, I can't hear you clearly.
So he's asking about reverse book building.
You were
Reverse book
Reverse
building. Reverse.
reverse book building is the question asked by him.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Ask. Proceed, proceed.
Reverse book building.
Uh-huh.
What is that? Reverse book building.
The reverse book building process for that is also used for the efficient price discovery. Once company announce delisting plan, no, so then that
Yeah.
time that reverse book building process is always applicable. So basically, we have discussed here about the listing, and your question is about the delisting. So that is why the reverse book building process is applicable that time. So once the any
That-
company needs to have to delist it, then what is the reverse book building process because the shareholders interest is there. So what sort of the that delisting is there? So that way.
Okay, sir.
I
Thank you.
think one or two more questions because it's a too lengthy or there are so many
Okay, sir.
audience.
That's all.
We have only
Thank you.
1.5
Thank
years.
you. Got clarified. Got clarified.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Prashant sir. Thank you so much for the session. Due to time constraint and since we are running out of time, we have collated all the questions and the questions will be shared to Prashant sir. Once the answers come from his side, we'll be posting it on our official chapter account. So
Okay.
Yeah, that will be the great. Actually, audience, I request the audience who can share their questions. I will be happy to reply that questions, and you can post it on the.
yeah,
Okay, sir.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. It's collated with chapter, and if at all any more queries are there or any more questions are there, you all are free to just mail it on our mail ID, and post that we can share it with Prashant sir. So once the answer comes from his side, we'll be posting it on our official account.
So we will get
Thank you.
Nashik chapter my mail ID. We can
Yes.
get from website.
Yeah. So you can get from website or even it is in our chat box also.
Okay.
You
Good
can
afternoon,
get it.
madam. This is Venkateswarlu Dasari from Hyderabad.
Yeah. Good
Practicing.
afternoon. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Okay, I sincerely thanks. Frankly speaking, let me wind up. Also, I have to rush for at 2 o'clock. But anyway, since it was interesting audience and I literally overwhelmed with such a huge response from the audience. And once again, thanks to the ICMAI Nashik chapter and organizers who has put lots of efforts and sincerely apologize. We have started little late due to technical glitch and
That's okay, sir.
frankly
No
happy to
problem.
connect once again with a new topic or the continuation of the same one with another specifications and it's really great to see you all in person as well if you get an opportunity at any given point of time. Please connect with me and LinkedIn if required anything or the directly connect with me for any discussion. Yeah. Thank you so
Sure.
much everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over to
Thank
you.
you so
Over
much.
to you.
Yeah. Very good afternoon to one and all. And behalf of Nashik Ozar chapter of ICMAI, I, Tejashri Jitendra Sarodai, take this opportunity to express my gratitude towards Prashant sir for his valuable guidance and also sparing time for us from his hectic schedule. Also, a very heartfelt thanks for explaining the topic in such an easy and lucid language, sir. I don't think that this topic can be explained more easier or in a more lucid language. So yeah, a heartfelt thanks for that too. And also, I extend my vote of thanks to all the students, members, and all the attendees for gracing the session with your presence. And last but not the least, I also would like to thank our organizing team, Bhushan sir, Dhananjay sir, Archana ma'am, and her team, who are always there supporting us and for organizing such an informative session. I also take this opportunity to thank all our committee officials who provide their constant support for us. And I also request Bhushan sir, Dhananjay sir, and all the committee officials, please come up with more Prashant sirs. We would like to hear more Prashant sirs,
Okay.
and even lectures by him or by any good, unless and until it's like two-way communication. It has to be come up from audience side as well. So we are very fortunate till now. We are always supported by the audience as well. So thanks to all the attendees. Yeah, thanks to Prashant sir. With this, I conclude. Thanks a lot and have a nice day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Prashant
you
sir.
so much.
Looking
Thank you all.
forward to you
Thank you, Dhananjay. Thank you,
in
Mangesh.
present. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Mangesh, and thanks, Dhananjay. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.